Hello. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to use the distributive property, and before I show you how to use it, I'm going to explain what the distributive property is. And that's what I have going on right here. So the distributive property is a way to multiply. And in most cases, it's a way to multiply a monomial times a binomial, but it could be times a trinomial, any kind of polynomial. So what we do here is we're going to take our number outside the parentheses, in the first example, the a, and we're going to multiply it by everything, or each term, I should say, inside the parentheses. So we're going to take that a, and we're going to multiply it by the b, and we're also going to take the a, and we're going to multiply it by the c. And then since we're adding inside the parentheses, we're going to continue to add here. So we have just used the distributive property to take this, our a, to take this part and multiply it together to be that part. Now in the second example, it's not really any different. We're still going to take that part that's outside the parentheses and multiply it by each term that's in the parentheses. So in this case, we're going to have the e times the f, and then we're going to have the e times the g. But since we were subtracting in there, we're going to continue to subtract in our answer here. So there's how to use the distributive property. I'm going to show you why that works in this first example. So I put up here to show two methods to rewrite this expression. So we have 3 times the quantity of x plus 5. Well, I think about what does multiplication mean? It's just repeated addition. So if I look at this one way, I could think of this as I have to take this number, call it x plus 5, and I have to add it to itself 3 times. So I have x plus 5, and x plus 5. Now, if we add all of those together, we end up with 3x plus 5. So this, excuse me, I did that wrong. How about plus 15? X plus x plus x is 3x, 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15. Therefore, 3 times the quantity of x plus 5 is also equal to 3x plus 15. Now, we could also use the distributive property. And when I use the distributive property, I like to use these little arcs to show myself what I'm multiplying. I have to take that 3, remember, I have to multiply it by the first term inside. And when I do that, I get 3x. And then if I take that 3 and multiply it by the second term inside, I get 15. And since I was adding inside my parentheses, I'm going to continue to add, and I get 3x plus 15. So notice, it doesn't matter which way we do it. We can do it this method with all the repeated addition, or we can just use the distributive property and we get what's up there. I have another example. Now notice that it's kind of flipped around. Now the parentheses are first and our number is second. But again, this problem is still telling me to take the a plus 4 and add it to itself 7 times. Now if we were to do that, a plus 4, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And if we add all of those together, well, a plus a plus a plus a plus a plus a plus a, we end up with 7a. And then if I take 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, we get 28. So if I take the quantity of a plus 4 and multiply it by 7, I'm going to end up with 7a plus 28. Now let's go distributive property approach. This time we're going to have to take the 7 and multiply it by everything inside the parentheses, in other words, each term. So I'm going to take the 7, I'm going to multiply it by a. And 7 times a, we get 7a. And then we'll come back and we'll take the 7 and multiply it by the 4, and we'll get 28. Since we were adding inside of our parentheses, we're going to add here, and we get 7a plus 28. And notice, it doesn't matter which way we do this, whether we use the repeated addition or if we use the distributive property, we get the same answer. Now, I'm hoping that you're recognizing that when we use the distributive property, it was much faster in both approaches. So many times, we'd much rather use the distributive property than to have to write out all of this stuff. So I'm going to take a look at these examples. Now notice I threw some negatives in here, but the approach is not going to change. We're going to take, now in this case, the 9 and multiply it by each term inside of our parentheses. So I'll take that 9 and I'm going to multiply it by q, and then I'm going to take the 9 and multiply it by what I'm going to like to think of there as the negative 3. Well, 9 times q is oops, start making my q first. Let's try it again. 9q. And now if I take 9 times negative 3, I get negative 27. So I can think of it as I'm going to add on negative 27 or subtract 27. And there I have it. I have rewritten that expression in another form using the distributive property. This one, same approach. Now I'm going to take the negative 3 and multiply it by the z, and I'll get negative 3z. And then I'm going to take the negative 3 and multiply it by, again, I'm going to think of that as a negative 7, and a negative 3 times a negative 7 is a positive 21. So I've used the distributive property to rewrite that expression. Just two more little examples here. Nothing changes. Take the negative 7 in this case, multiply it by w, and we get negative 7w. And then we'll take the negative 7 and we'll multiply it by negative 4. And negative 7 times negative 4 is positive 28. So we've rewritten it using the distributive property. And now last but not least here, we have the quantity of n minus 2 times negative 9. So I'm going to take that negative 9, I'm going to multiply it by the n. And negative 9 times n is negative 9n. And then I'm going to take the negative 9 and I'm going to multiply it by the negative 2. Negative 9 times negative 2 is a positive 18. And I have it. I have my expression rewritten using the distributive property. And that will conclude my lesson on the distributive property.